Before we dive into Ionic Native, it's important to just take a few moments to answer the question, what is Ionic Native? In short, Ionic Native provides access to native device features. Sometimes you hear people say they need to write a native app instead of a cross-platform app because they need access to certain native device features. This assertion just isn't accurate because Cordova plugins enable you to access all these native APIs. Examples of these are the camera, geolocation, accelerometer, and more. Cordova plugins, which wrap native features, is not a new concept. What Ionic Native itself does is to provide nice wrappers around these Cordova plugins, which have been notorious for not always having the most developer-friendly APIs. These native plugins actually use native code, so Java on Android, Objective-C on iOS, C# on Windows, and so on. Sometimes you hear people say that performance won't be good enough with a JavaScript cross-platform app in some area of their app. Not only are these assertions typically misinformed, but also, if you do find a case where that is true, you still have the option to drop down and write native code in your cross-platform app for these areas. This truly gives you the best of both worlds. These Ionic Native wrappers can be used regardless of whether you're writing your app in ES5, ES6, or TypeScript, though it should be noted that you'll get the richest experience if you're using TypeScript. A few moments ago, you heard me say that Cordova plugins were known for not always having the most developer-friendly API. Part of that is always using traditional callbacks. Another thing Ionic Native does for you is to wrap those callbacks in promises and observables, so you can have a much more modern and easy to use API. Another differentiator with Ionic Native is that it represents a curated list of native plugins. This is important because there are many very low quality native plugins floating around out there. However, all the plugins wrapped by Ionic Native have been curated by the Ionic team so that only high quality plugins make it in. I should note that how to write your own native plugin is beyond the scope of this course. In this module, we're going to dive into how you can discover, add, and implement Ionic Native plugins in your app.